Today on The Social Corner.
You can compartmentalise your life and lose who you are in the process. There was nothing more that I wanted other than to be a mum. I found a distraction in business. When you're in a position where there is no choice, then you realise what you're made of.
Hello and welcome to The Social Corner with me, Daina Anderson-Umpunzi. My guest today embodies the definition of entrepreneurial, and with 15 years of experience in commercial business ventures, she's often referred to as a serial entrepreneur. She's operated her company, Engage Training and Consultancy, for over 10 years, traveling the globe to deliver training, consultancy, mentoring, and more. And as an award-winning speaker, she often uses her own life experiences to inspire and motivate others. And I'm sure today will be no different. Melissa, welcome to The Social Corner.
Thank you for having me, Daina.
Thank you for coming. I always knew I'd talk to you in some capacity one day about your journey, because it's always been something that fascinated me, but I didn't know obviously that we'd be here. Yeah. But you've been in business for a long time, roughly. I know the company's 10 years, but how long would you say you've actually been in business?
Since 2008. So what would that be?
That would be like, here's the maths now, about 14 years.
Yeah.
14 years.
Yeah.
So how do you endure a journey like that? How do you last for 14 years? Because as you know, most businesses crash after but don't last after is it 2 years or something like that?
Well, many businesses fail in the first 12 months, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, I've had different ventures. It's not been the same consistent business for the last 14 years, although Engage Training and Consultancy has not been far off that.
Right.
12 years, but it's evolved along the way. So I'm not running that business how I originally set it out.
As far back as I can remember, I think I can comfortably say you've been a boss. That's the term that we use now. But I think one of the most distinctive memories I have of you is being in your office above this shop in, was it King's Standing? You got
the very first office.
Yeah. And it was me, you, and our friends Naomi and Leonie, and you were sitting there with your hot chocolate, I think it was, or tea, and you said, I'm going to open this estate agency, and this is how I'm going to do it. And I remember thinking, either she's absolutely nuts.
Well, yeah, there's some truth in that.
Or she's seriously got some crazy faith, because it was from ground zero, wasn't it?
Literally.
Do you remember that time?
I recall us being in the office, but I don't remember having that conversation at that time. I think because I'd spoken it out, and I guess I'd go as far as to say I'd declared it multiple times, that I don't remember that exact specific moment.
And is that how it works for you? Just the declaration comes out of your mouth, I suppose, and then you just go for it? Yeah.
I mean, I often get an idea, then I have to speak it into existence, because I guess I'm telling myself that it's happening as much as whilst I'm telling you, I'm building the belief within myself that this is happening. Right. And because I've said it, now I have to execute it.
You've got to follow through.
Yeah,
that's how it's going. Have you always had that entrepreneurial spirit in you, or is it something that's been developed?
Yeah. Recently I did a timeline exercise where I look back at my life from the day I was born to present day, and it's such a powerful exercise because it showed me the patterns right back to childhood. And I mean, I went to grammar school, and very academic, as you can imagine, that environment, and I felt as though I just didn't fit into that. So I didn't stay on for sixth form. I was 1 out of 3 out of the whole year that left. And I decided it was time for college. Even that at that point wasn't really my journey and how it evolved. So looking back, the fact that I didn't gel well with the academic route, I wanted more. I wanted to be creative. I wanted to feel free to be able to run with my ideas. And I remember doing silver service, as many of us did. I think it was probably about 16, 17 when I started, which was like a side hustle, which I met many of my friends through doing that. And I remember we were paid something like, I think it was £40 for the day. And that would be from 5 o'clock in the morning till probably 11 o'clock on the night, because we'd go to Royal Ascot or Twickenham and do major long shifts. And I remember seeing one day the invoice on the desk of the agency who I worked for. We were paid £40, but they were getting £120 per person.
Wow.
Doing the maths, 2 coach loads. I thought, hang on. And that's when my appetite for business started, because originally I was thinking I'd like to probably have an agency. That evolved into obviously property. But around age 16 was where I started to think about entrepreneurial ventures.
Did you see any of that in your family growing up at all, or was it mainly that moment that sparked it, or did you see any of that growing up at all?
I think yeah, but not so much. I mean, two different families, obviously. It's almost like the rich dad, poor dad kind of philosophy. My mum's side, not so academic, but a couple of my uncles were very entrepreneurial. Right. One in particular who I was very close with growing up. So watching him with his businesses, and he'd always have the latest Porsche on the drive, and he really, I watched his journey and his growth, and it was all done through business. Whereas my dad, on the other hand, very academically driven, so very career driven, but didn't have that business kind of motivation. Right. So I think the learning from the two is what kind of helped me and inspired me. Yeah.
What would you say are your 3 biggest personal values, and what moments in your life actually helped shape those?
I'd say integrity, definitely, is probably my number 1. And being integral, not just in business, but also in my personal life, and me being who I am, whether that be in business or not. Because I think often we kind of put ourselves in a box when we're in business, and now we're in business mode, we're in work mode. But then you can compartmentalize your life and lose who you are in the process. So love, 100% love, just, that's the currency. Like without love, not just for each other, for yourself, but for what you do, because without that, you don't have the passion. I'd say family. I know it's quite different, but family as my 3rd value, not in any particular order. But why are we doing this? What's it all about? To create a legacy ultimately for myself. And without family, what's the point?
Right.
That's kind of, I think I recognise that a bit later on in life.
I had a feeling you might say that one, because that is very much what's around you, or like, when I've been to any of your shindigs or parties, or it's families like really. And I remember you talking about wanting to have the family all together at living together at one point. I think
I had this great idea of the Waltons.
Waltons, really. Yes, that was it. And
I've moved on from that.
Okay. Okay, scratch that question. But it is a massive part of who you are, and actually leads well into, because I want to understand what you were like growing up.
Growing up, so coming back to family, I've come from a very big family, both sides, so lots of cousins, and we were particularly with probably 8 or 9 of my cousins, I was very close. So life wasn't as it is now. Like now you make an appointment to visit people, to meet with friends.
6 months from now.
It's got to go in the diary, it's got to be scheduled. Whereas growing up, we were always at each other's houses. If I wasn't at my nan's, I'd be at my cousin's or my granddad's. It was all about family. Like they were my extended siblings. Yeah. And I feel that has got lost along the way, which is probably where the passion came from for that whole idea of the Waltons, which I say it's gone, but really my vision is more about a village. We didn't have much, to be honest, growing up. I won't say we weren't poor, but we had to watch what we did. Like we were living to a budget. Yeah. I grew up in Handsworth in Birmingham, very much a sense of community.
What were your experiences of womanhood growing up? What did you see?
My mum always had a close-knit connection with her friends, who she was really close with my aunties, and that's on my dad's side. So our families were very much connected and intertwined. I guess I saw that growing up, in the typical the adults are having a conversation in the front room, you're not allowed in there, and you want to be in there, so you hide behind the sofa and listening. It was that. But my mum always had strong female connections around her.
How would you define womanhood back then as opposed to now?
I guess growing up then, there was a very much a maternal kind of influence, and my mum used to bake bread. She used to make patties from scratch. She used to do all of that. And so cooking and the women cooking together is like a strong memory for me. I think that the feminine influence was a lot stronger then. And I don't know if it was because I feel a lot more is expected of women now as opposed to then. So even though growing up, my mum worked part-time, she would always drop me to school, pick me up from school. I remember my mum always being there. I think now, I believe things have changed from what I see, and women are a lot more academically driven, career driven, business driven. And I think that's probably missing sometimes from the home. But there's many reasons as to why women probably feel that they have to do that and step out. A lot of women are the breadwinners. The family unit isn't there as much as it used to be. So I feel that women have probably found their strength and found their voice more, but that can have an impact on the femininity and the maternal side. The women that were in my life at that point, who I would look up to, probably had the aspirations to do different things, but the children were the priority. So they never actually realised their dreams and their full potential. That's what I've seen. And I think whereas now things have changed and women can achieve things a lot easier because the platform's there and things have moved on.
This generation of women are waiting that little bit longer to get their career out the way, get business and stuff, then start the family planning. Is there a right or wrong way to do it, do you think?
I don't think there is a right or wrong way. If I look at my nan had 8 children in 9 years.
Wow.
I have no idea how she did that. Listen, I have one and I'm like, what, it's a lot.
Yeah.
My mum had my brother at 19 or 20, I think she just turned. And then I came along when she was 27. So there's 7 years between us. That's young when you put it into context, but that was around the age that women were having children, like 20s. So I think having children younger, there's lots of benefits. Your energy levels are definitely higher. There's no doubt about that. But if I'd have had children 20 years ago, I don't know what I know now. I don't have the experiences that I have now. And I think, what would I install into children at that age? So there's pros and cons, but I don't regret. I mean, even though it wasn't necessarily by choice, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but I don't regret having a child later on because I feel like I'm in a completely different place in terms of what I can offer.
But was there ever another realization or a moment where you realized, oh, I think I'm an entrepreneur?
The signs were there. I don't think I saw them at the time, but when I reflect back, now I see the patterns that were there. So the desire to have a business was strong, as I mentioned, from 16, probably earlier. But then I guess my nature. So I'd always say I'm star sign. I'm not that I'm into star signs, but I'm a Taurus. So quite headstrong, can be bossy. So I don't like to take orders and instructions from other people. So I've tried the career path and it didn't work for me because I don't like being told what to do, especially when I can see a better way of doing it, but it doesn't fit in with the way we do things, the culture of the organisation. Too many barriers, too much red tape. And I think in my career, so I had a 7-year career in social housing, 2001 to 2008. So I was 19 when I first, going on 20 when I joined the Housing Association. And by year 2, 3, I was already feeling frustrated because I could see a better way of doing things, but my voice wasn't being heard. And lots of bureaucracy to get things approved and agreed. You've got to go through so many layers of the organisation. And that's probably where the frustration kind of started to build up, which then I tuned into a passion.
What would you say are some of the toughest lessons you've learned or had to learn? along the way?
Similar to what we're going through now at this present moment, like politically, the climate we're in. I mean, 2008 was when the last recession hit.
Yeah.
And we'd already started in business at that point. I say we because I was with a business partner and we were doing youth and community engagement, and we didn't look ahead and failed to think, okay, it's like doing a pest analysis, isn't it? If something politically changes or environmentally, how do you navigate your business through that? So one of my toughest lessons was not looking ahead and planning. I mean, you can only plan to a certain degree, but being ready to be able to evolve quickly and be agile.
Yeah.
And I guess being stuck in the way we do things and finding it difficult to change quickly enough. Secondly, I'd say staff, managing a team. You know, you've got your way of doing things and you've got certain standards, and to then communicate that to a team of people who will never see it the way you do because it's your vision, your business, and have the patience, which is one thing I've lacked and one thing my son is teaching me now is patience. Yeah. Because I'm very much a doer.
Right.
Get the idea, have to implement it now. But recognising that not everybody moves at the same speed.
Yeah. With nothing but self-will, a small loan from her mum, and her resilience, Melissa launched her business Amity Properties in 2014. She successfully grew the business, amassing an impressive property portfolio, managing a team and winning multiple awards. In 2019, true to her original plan, she sold the company, preparing to make the move into a new venture. But life had other plans. We'd have little meetings, wouldn't we, as a group, and you'd be like, I've got to go because I've got to get up to open the shop in the morning, which would be a Saturday morning. It was relentless. Yeah. At that point, did you have any thoughts about self-care?
No, I didn't.
Were you aware that you weren't prioritising, or was it just blanket mode, let me just get on with this?
I think in the early stages, no, I wasn't aware. And then people would tell me, and the symptoms were there because I'd be, bearing in mind, it wasn't just this business. I was still training, and that was taking me abroad quite a lot. So I was travelling, training, coming back, not switching off. I'd be, I had a client in Germany for 18 months. So I'd just fly into Germany to Dusseldorf for 2 nights every month. But I'd be there delivering training. Then I'd go back to the hotel, and then I'm, doing work for the estate agency. I was so swamped mentally, emotionally, physically. But then people would start to say, you need to slow down. I'd get, colds quite often because I was run down. I wasn't eating as I should have been. I wasn't really exercising because I didn't have the time. Any minute of the day, there was always something to be done. And it was, on reflection, it wasn't healthy, but the business was growing and the business was becoming successful.
It's like you were putting all your self-care into the business, and the business is this healthy company while you're, it sounds like a scene from a film where you've got this career-driven woman. It's this thing that I think we as women are being sold a lot more recently, where we can have it all. Do you think we can have it all?
I think we can have it all, but you need to find the balance in what you're doing. And balance doesn't necessarily mean how you kind of proportion your day. It's seasonal for me. So now I'm in a different, obviously going through that and having the success of the business, but also it having an impact on me and my health. I have a different mindset. So the way that I would run things now would be very different.
At that time, did you have anything to prove?
I think it's more to myself. So when I set, I believe I'm quite competitive. But it's not something that other people would say. I think it's with myself. So if I set myself a challenge, I have to hit it.
So 2014, you've opened this shop, King Standing, it's going well, you're putting everything into it, you're traveling, you're doing everything, and probably recognizing sort of symptoms of burnout, but not just driving past the warning signs.
Yeah.
And then you open another shop, like you take, the shop gets bigger. And you move to, was it Sutton Coldfield?
Yeah.
Add the sales part to the business. What's going on?
I'd thrown myself into business more and more because that was where I was finding my identity.
Right.
But what was going on behind the scenes was I was running away from my heart's desires because it wasn't happening for me. And inside, there was nothing more that I wanted other than to be a mum. I had this maternal scream coming out from within. And that's all I wanted. But because it wasn't happening for me, I found a distraction in business.
When did you recognise that maternal voice? How old were you roughly? And when did that voice turn into a shrill, a scream?
In my late 20s, that's when I was kind of thinking, okay, when you're approaching 30, 30 was, I always knew that by 33, and I don't know why, I don't know why 33 was stuck in my mind, but I thought by the time I'm 33, I want to have had 2 children at least.
Yeah.
So when I'm approaching 30 now, so say 27, 28, I was kind of getting a bit on edge, like, okay, this needs to be happening now. And it wasn't happening. And then 30 came and went, and I kind of forgot about it again. And then once I was approaching 33, it kicked in.
Right.
Probably because that was a goal that I'd set for myself.
I was going to say again, that competitive.
Going back to what I said, but
Yeah.
you're not in control of everything, are you?
Right.
And some things like business, and I guess this is coming to me now as I'm speaking, I had an element of control. So I controlled what was happening there. I didn't have control in the fact that my heart's desire wasn't happening. I had no control over that happening.
Yeah.
So once I hit 33, I think that's when it really started to become obvious that this is what I want and it's not happening. And then it was becoming a frustration.
Your experience at that point, 33, here comes the number that you set the marker on.
Yeah.
And there it goes, in the rear view. Did you internalize any of that emotion? Did you ever speak about it with anyone, or was it just business?
Not really. I'd speak with my partner about it and but it was more me saying, is this ever going to happen? So I think I was losing faith at this point, because I think when it's something so personal, and I guess the fear of thinking it's not going to happen, I didn't want to continue to keep my hopes up that it would, because then it's the fear of, well, if it doesn't, what's my identity? What's the point in all of this? What am I doing this for? It was all of those kind of questions. And if I start going down that road, then I won't do anything and I'm stuck. As
you're losing faith in this deep desire, this dream, are you investigating what's going? What was happening? Why wasn't it happening at that point? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I was diagnosed with polycystic ovaries, which is basically cysts on my ovaries, which is a very common health issue. I think 1 in 10 women in the UK suffer from it, and some have symptoms more so than others. Infertility is one of the biggest symptoms. And infertility doesn't necessarily mean you can't have children. It just means it's difficult for you to conceive. And so because I was diagnosed with that, I knew what the problem was. But then everything I was doing to try and overcome that or combat it, because they say you can't cure it, you just have to manage the symptoms. So I tried everything from herbalistic to what the doctors were prescribing, to they say, exercise plays a key part. So I took spurts of exercising. I wasn't consistent, I'll be honest. What you're eating, all of these things, it's like lowering the sugar, the amount of sugar that goes into your body, because it's similar to diabetes is what the tablets that they give you to combat it or deal with it. So I was trying all of these things. So I knew the issue, but then it's like you know the issue, but how do you overcome that?
Yeah.
And I tried.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was trying different things behind the scenes, but it didn't seem to be happening until
yeah, it did. Because it did eventually happen.
It did.
So tell us about that moment where you first got pregnant, because I think it's important for everyone to understand that even pregnancy was a journey for you in itself.
Yeah.
The moment you first ever realised you were pregnant, tell us about that time.
So the first time, I was 37, and I didn't realise that I was pregnant until it was too late.
Right.
So I was bleeding heavily,
Yeah.
and I just thought, okay, it's just one of those cycles, because that was quite, you know, that would happen. But it was very, very heavy, and at the time there was a lot going on. So again, back to business, I was doing a lot. And I was actually taking my team away to Manchester for the weekend.
Right.
So I was part of a mastermind group of estate agents, and we'd agreed that we'd bring our teams together. Me being the trainer in the group, I was leading on the whole away day. Wow. So I couldn't be ill. Like, I had how many people
kicks in,
I had to keep going. And although I didn't know what was happening, subconsciously I knew, but I didn't want to think. I couldn't think about it, because if I thought about it, everything's going to come crashing down at this moment. Yeah. So I powered through, and I had to keep on going. That was the first time, and then came back to Birmingham, went to the doctors a couple of days later. They confirmed what was happening, and so I was miscarrying. Right. Yeah. Then 6 months later, then I conceived again. The same thing happened. Okay. I'd found out, and then a few days later, I'd started bleeding, and I knew, having gone through it the first time, I knew what was happening. Then a couple of years went and nothing happened, and then again I conceived again. Went through the same thing, so same loss, and then again I conceived. So after all these years of nothing happening, and I hadn't necessarily changed anything drastically, maybe it was just my time. But I think because I wasn't in tune with my body, because I was so busy all of the time, I missed the signs each time. And on reflection now, I don't think, I wasn't giving my body the message that I'm ready for this. Because in order for anything to receive anything, you've got to prepare yourself. Yeah. And similarly, if you're asking for, I was asking to be blessed with a baby, but my lifestyle wasn't reflecting that. Yeah. So I wasn't slowing down, I wasn't looking after my body, I wasn't putting all the nutrients in that I should have been. So how possibly, I believe God can't bless mess. You've got to tidy things up. Yeah. So after that had happened 3 times, I said, no, this is enough now. Like, I have to make some serious changes. But coincidentally, I'd actually sold my business 2019. Yeah. So I had a 5-year plan with the estate agency. Sold the business December 2019. At this point, I was approaching 40. So I was due to turn 40 in May. So you can imagine, it's like approaching that 30 and that 33 all over again. But this time, I had to make this happen. Right. So I was actually, myself and my partner were planning to have IVF at the time. So we'd started the process in terms of the consultation, and we were due to start in March. Right. So me, again, with my targets, like, okay, March, so by May. And in the beginning of February, the 3rd of February, I discovered that I was pregnant.
After 3 miscarriages and years of infertility, Melissa and her partner Rodney were overjoyed to find out they were expecting. With everything that she'd experienced, she hadn't lost complete faith and instead found hope amidst the pain.
It's an awful thing to go through, and, you know, emotionally, it's such a tough, horrible, dark tunnel to go through. But at the same time, it gave me hope. Because there was a period of time when I didn't think it would happen at all. So the fact that it was happening naturally, that ignited that faith in me. So that's when I become more so, as I mentioned, like giving up to 40, this is going to happen. Like I had that belief.
You've had friends that were around you having children and things like that. What was going on for you when you saw their lives evolving in that particular way?
It's like an internal battle, because with the second time I was miscarrying, I was going to the hospital with my best friend who was going for scans. She was pregnant. So you can imagine, it's like, I'm so happy for her, but then I'm going through this, and I didn't want to talk about it because I didn't want to have an impact on her and her pregnancy. So it was tough.
Is that where you kick back onto your values though?
Yeah.
Love, family, integrity.
Yeah, that's where I had to dig deep, because I knew that if I allowed the negative feelings that we're having to take over, then there'd be probably like some bitterness there, or that couldn't happen. So I had to nip that in the bud and really overcome it with, going back to values. But it's so hard when you're going through your challenges to then celebrate others who are going through the exact opposite. But at the same time, it's so important to do that. Absolutely. Because that is building your faith.
You've come to your fourth pregnancy now. You've you know, just before, as you're approaching IVF, as you've mentioned, and here you are getting this news that you don't need to go down this cycle because you're pregnant. How are you feeling at that particular moment?
Like totally elated. Like, I can't believe this is happening. Like my faith increased tenfold at this point. And the fact that I was in a completely different place because I'd sold my business. And things were different.
What was life looking like?
Very calm at this. Now, don't get me wrong. I still had other plans. Like I was planning on launching an academy for entrepreneurs. So I had all these events lined up, and also we were going into lockdown.
I was just about to say.
We went into lockdown in the March.
Massive contributing factor, wasn't it?
So just to backtrack, actually, we'd already been in lockdown. So I'd lost track of my years. So we'd been in 2020 lockdown. This was 2021 now.
2021,
So I'd had a year of slowing down, which I truly believe that contributed to things happening for me the way they did, because I'd stopped. And it wasn't out of choice, but we were forced to. We had no choice. Everybody had to stop. Well, you could still do other things, but you were limited. And I'd chosen to just stop and be still.
Would you say you were happier?
I was much happier.
Isn't that just so bizarre that when you take everything away, actually I'm much, much happier than...
With the simple things, going for a walk along the canal, having lunch with my partner, like having that time where there's no, I've got to be here at a certain time or we're on the clock. It was like a breath of fresh air.
To me, it sounds like your body responded to that. And here you are then, pregnant, elated. So tell us about that time from there.
Well, that changed. This went on for 5 months. So found out I was pregnant in the February. Shortly afterwards, found out that I was actually pregnant with twins, which was like a huge, just such a mixture of emotions. It's like I was so happy, but then I was anxious at the same time, because it's high risk pregnancy with twins, and then I was doing all the things that you shouldn't do, the Googling, the YouTubing, all of that. But things then seemed to be going okay. Reached my 40th birthday with a big belly. Everything was going fine, and then a couple of weeks later, things took a turn. And I'd gone into, I was experiencing some bleeding, which wasn't unusual in this pregnancy anyway, because that can happen. But I just went into hospital just to be checked, to then be told that actually my cervix was opening and I was going into labour, but I was only 19 weeks at this point.
And so for anyone who doesn't understand the implications of that, there's kind of a cut-off point, isn't there, of a safe delivery at a certain amount of weeks. 23 weeks, so you're at 19 weeks. When you're being told this, Where are you mentally with what you're hearing?
In denial initially, complete shock. So I've gone from this kind of floating through life, everything's amazing. Don't get me wrong, I had the illnesses along with it. It was a hard pregnancy.
Right.
But yeah, to now I had all this vision of how things were going to be, planned everything out, already started buying things, to then be told this wasn't happening. Like I just couldn't comprehend it. I couldn't digest it. I was just that. I then went into denial. So I was in hospital for a week before I actually then gave birth to my twin daughters. And in this time, I'm just thinking, no, it will be okay. I just need to get through a couple of more weeks, and then there's a chance of survival. But then I was putting myself at risk because I'd lost so much blood that they were talking then about having a blood transfusion. And then I remember probably 5 days in, a consultant coming in and saying, look, we're concerned for your health now. And if you carry it, because I was just trying to retain this pregnancy. So I was trying to have, feet up and keep still to get to 23 weeks. But I got to 20 weeks and 2 days, and then I went into full-blown labour.
And it's important to understand that your twins were born alive, were they not? Yeah. So in that moment you saw them, you connected with them?
Yeah, so I'm trying not to get upset now.
It's okay.
But we had 15 minutes with them. So they were born alive. At that stage, their eyes aren't open, which is why they're not in a position where they can survive, because like their eyes will open at 23 weeks. So we had 15 minutes, which was bittersweet. So it was like such an emotional roller coaster. But the fact that we had that time with them was such a beautiful moment. And then they just peacefully passed. But they were just literally, they were twins, but they were like as one. They were holding each other. And it was just, such an emotional but beautiful time.
I commend you for talking about this, because I'm feeling emotional myself, and just hearing, to know that they come and said hello before saying we've got to go now. That's, it's so beautiful. Do you want to just cut? Yeah, just cut. I have to commend you for being so strong enough to talk about this, because I can imagine there's women who aren't speaking about it, going through it, even feeling ashamed about things, but to hear you speak can unlock so much in them. Have you found that many people have approached you or spoken to you about things since?
Yeah, I mean, I decided to speak out. And as much as it's been very difficult, the more I've spoken about it, the easier it becomes. Because, I mean, my daughters were born, they were alive. So Alana Faith and Elena Grace. And they blessed our lives so much. Like, the impact that they've had. And we talk about love, the love that they brought. I can't even begin to explain. That's a whole nother podcast. Like... They impacted our lives. So I talk because I don't ever want them to be forgotten. The more I've talked, I've had women contact me privately to say, I've been through something similar, but I've never been able to speak about it. And I've realised how much of a taboo topic it is, and how, I mean, in my case, twins, so it's not it's not your everyday pregnancy. There's lots of women who've experienced loss and not been able to speak about it. And I do believe that there has to be some kind of outlet for that to happen, because when you keep that emotion inside of you, then it's going to have an impact on you in other areas and manifest in different ways, whether that be your physical health, your mental health, your emotional well-being, all of those factors. So I think it's really important that we do talk about these things and normalise it.
Absolutely, because it is actually extremely common, and that's what we don't realise. You know, I was thinking about that from, you talked about your nan having like 9 kids. You know, I'm one of 6. My parents are one of like 9, 10 or whatever it is. Back then they were just churning them out. But when I sit down and talk to like my grandma and my mum and like, you know, and family, miscarriages were happening, but they were dealt with, I suppose, differently. And now we've massively reduced the amount of children we're having, but it's common and it's not spoken about. And so I think what you're doing to talk about it is absolutely imperative and so good, because it's relatable, and women need to know it's not just me, if you know what I mean. Were you in the process of, I suppose, exploring healing or anything like that?
The first thing that I looked for on the day after was retreats for baby loss. I just Googled. I thought there has to be something out there, because the thought of going back home and then trying to be normal again, I just didn't know how to be. I'd gone through 5 months of this pregnancy, and I didn't know how to then just return home. And what do you do? What do you do after that? How do you get back to?
And this is a very different
normality.
Mindset to where you were before, where you just powered through things.
Yeah, this was very different.
You know,
and this, I mean, before there'd been early miscarriages, whereas this was like 5 months of carrying twins. It's a long time. I needed more. Like I needed something specialist. I needed workshops. I needed to be able to speak about how I was feeling. I needed to navigate through this. I knew the tools and the techniques, but I needed some kind of guidance, and I just felt that I needed some kind of element of some help in working through it.
So what did you do?
I was referred to a charity in Birmingham. Well, they're not a charity, I don't think, but for counselling, Lily May Foundation. And that was really, I mean, I can't thank them enough, because that really helped, and set up by a couple who've been through baby loss themselves, so know firsthand. So I went through counselling. But 6 weeks after, so let's go back. So we had to have a funeral, the whole process. That was 2 weeks after the twins were born and passed. And then myself and my partner Rodney, we went away to Devon just to get some time out, came back, started counselling. And then 6 weeks after, discovered that I was pregnant again. So that was an absolute... It was a very different, because after going through what we'd been through, and so quickly, you can imagine, you haven't even the had anxiety levels. I'm still grieving. Grieving comes in waves. You know, it doesn't happen instantly, because you go through, like, you're in shock. I was numb, so I was just at the process of starting to really grieve, and then I found out I was pregnant.
I'd be like, what's
like
going on?
A whirlwind of emotions.
But how do you put one foot in front of the other once you get that news that you're pregnant again?
Well, it was like another chance. I guess most people at that point would think, I'm not doing this again, I can't go through it after all that. But I still had that hope and that faith.
Right, so that's...
Yeah, I still had it, and I contacted a consultant at QE, Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham. So I'd started my research, looking at top consultants in their field for pregnancies at a high risk, etc. Came across a consultant, wrote to her personally. Caroline Fox, her name is, amazing consultant. Wrote to her personally, told her what we'd been through, and said I want to come under her care once I conceive again. So I had that faith.
it was gonna happen.
Yeah, she phoned me, which I was so shocked. I didn't expect her to. She phoned me and said, "I've received your letter, and of course I will, you'd be under my care." Little did I know, at that point I was already pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'd already had that. So as soon as I then found out, I contacted her and I was straight away, bypassed the doctor, bypassed all of that, straight to the consultant.
So 6 months safe zone, but it wasn't actually the safe zone, was it? Was something, what happened at that point?
So then 27 weeks and 3 days. And I remember waking up in the night and feeling something was different. Well, 2 days prior to that, sorry, I'll go back. I woke up feeling, and I thought I was going to faint, like I was having crazy dizzy spells. I'd got up to go to the toilet and literally fell forward and caught myself on the wall. We had to call an ambulance out. I was checked over, everything was fine, no explanation for it. 2 days after that, so I was 27 weeks on 1 day at that point. 2 days after that, woke up probably 3 a.m, felt something had changed. I felt as though my baby had dropped.
Right.
So like I just felt like a different position.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling as much movement, although I could still feel movement. I'd got up, contacted triage, maternity ward, explained how I was feeling. Again, because I'm high risk, they said, come in, let's check you over. But I just knew that I wasn't going to be coming back out of that hospital.
Really? Wow.
So I packed my bag, woke up my partner and I said, don't worry, don't panic, but we need to go to hospital. So I'm maintaining a very calm state at this point. Went in, they checked me and they said, we need to take you straight through to delivery. You're 5 centimetres dilated.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you're in labour.
I'm in labour. So I'm now getting, the contractions are kicking in.
Right.
And I thought, okay, this baby's coming at 27 weeks. This baby's coming. Hadn't found out what the sex was at this point, but I knew that I was having a boy.
Oh, so
I just knew.
You just knew.
Yeah. So this was 3 o'clock in the morning. So we went through the whole day of me being in labour. Then it got really intense, like around 2 o'clock. And just after 4, my son Remiko was born, feet first. All I wanted to hear was a cry, which I guess is all mums at that point. So I'm just waiting to hear a cry, and then the cry came. So I think I was holding my breath, literally just waiting, and then it was like a sigh of relief. He was placed on me, but obviously with him being so premature, he then had to be taken straight into the neonatal unit. I was there literally from morning till night, every single day for 3 months.
Wow.
7 days a week, every day, 3 months. I mean, my partner will say that, and I don't remember this, but when Remiko was born and then he was passed to me and he was on my chest, I looked at him and said, everything's going to be okay. Yeah. But he remembers that and he held on to that. And then he continually repeated that back to me and told me that when I said it to him, he felt the conviction and he believed it and knew it. Yeah. So then it's almost like I passed that to him for him to then repeat that to me throughout.
Because that's your declaration of faith.
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself?
Perseverance, courage, strength that you don't realise that you have. Like, I didn't think I had the strength, but until you've got no choice. Yeah. When you're in a position where there is no choice, then you realise what you're made of.
Are you a better person for this?
Yeah, I'd say so. I really think so. I think I have changed a lot. I'm a lot more chilled, I've been told. So I'm more relaxed. I'm not so, caught up in this has to be done and, deadlines have to be hit. So I'm more relaxed and just definitely more patient.
Do you, I mean, I can't answer this for you, but I feel something. And the question is really, do you think life has happened to you or life has happened for you?
I think it's happened for me. I think it's easy to say life has happened to you and it's kind of like it's out of your control, but then lessons are there to be learned. And I'm a believer that you will go around a cycle and be stuck unless you learn from that lesson, and then it will repeat itself in another way.
And Ramika's coming up to his first birthday.
Yeah.
What's life been like with him?
It's beautiful.
As a new mum?
I absolutely love being a mum. It's the most rewarding thing ever. He brings a calm to me in every way. Don't get me wrong, juggling things is difficult because I'm starting to get back, into business, and I'm suffering from mum guilt, which, I think it's a thing. Yeah. So I'm kind of looking at doing 3 days a week in terms of business, Tuesday to Thursday, and then Friday to Monday, it's about Ramiko. And he rolls with me everywhere. I went to AKD Solutions, the training consultancy that I'm an associate for. They have what they call boot camp, where all the associates come together, like a weekend. Can't think of the word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, like I don't know.
A residential.
Residential, that's
So last week, I took Ramiko with me because we come as a package now. So it's either I can't come or we come together because I'm not. That's my time with him, so I'm not going to jeopardise that.
Yeah. This show is called The Social Corner, as you know, and the idea behind it is to look at how you want to change the landscape, the social landscape of your arena, whether that may be business or... So my question to you is, how do you want to see your social corner evolve over the next 5 years, whatever that social corner might be?
I think I'm still navigating through that, if I'm honest. Coming off this roller coaster, I'm still finding my path. Business will always be a part of me and what I do. So I do have other things that I'll be working on to get back into a state agency, but on a premium level once the market recovers to a degree. And also training, which, I've been doing for
forever,
12 years, 13 years. But I've got training products for estate and letting agents. So again, linked to property. So that's my commercial ventures, which I'll be doing.
What do you want women to get out of it? What do you want them to leave with?
With a renewed sense of purpose, with the attitude and the belief that I can and I will. It's that whole ethos. Reconnecting with their vision. So I want them to feel passion, alive, ready to go and make a difference and really carry out the things that are in their hearts, their deep desires that they haven't done for whatever reason.
Melissa, thank you so much for coming and sharing, I want to say your testimony, because it really is a testimony of not just an account of what you've been through, but of who you are and what you are all about and what you're bringing to this world. So it's been a blessing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I just really hope that anyone watching this can really take away the message that I'm taking away, which is hope. There's always hope.
Always.
So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.